how do we keep his legacy alive? Speaking truth to power, self-critically, bearing witness, tied to the most sophisticated analysis of the day, of the economy, of culture, but also of self-transformation. Edward was in no way hermetic or privatistic, but he was deeply individualistic in terms of style, and sometimes very lonely and isolated. You see. But how do you keep his legacy alive in a moment in which the market now saturates every nook and cranny of our culture, including the academy, in which everything is for sale, everybody's for sale. Not just here, but in the Middle East too. Edward Said, the best sense of the radical humanist intellectual tradition, exemplified an integrity in the face of oppression. His whole life. Intellectual integrity, moral integrity. Integrity is not purity. Integrity is not being always right, but constancy, having the courage of your convictions regardless of the cost, to take a risk. Honesty, sheer intellectual honesty. Edward Said tried to be honest. Decency in the face of insult. All of the various narratives and analysis. We see it today. Can you imagine 500 babies being killed in 50 days and there not being a wave of righteous indignation in every corner of the country or globe? It's indecent that could take place and there not be those kinds of waves of moral outrage and holy anger. Said says, honesty in the face of insult. You're disrespecting the folk. To have that kind of relative silence, given the dominance of certain conceptions of what's going on in the Middle East, that allows the Israeli Defense Forces to do what they want in the name of self-defense. No, there's some moral limits. No, there's some ethical constraints. And there's some imbalance and asymmetry of power and domination when you're talking about the clash of those peoples. And last but not least, virtue in the face of brute force. The Said, very much like those of us in the Black Freedom Movement, we understood that when you talk about intellectual work, it's never just academic and abstract. Because when you take a stand, you better be willing to die, because the repressive apparatus of the nation states coming at you will generate not just character assassination, but actual assassination. Brute force. Something that's hard for many of our mainstream liberal and neoliberal intellectuals to come to terms with, because brute force is not part of their world. When I'm told there's over 1,000 white supremacist militia groups operating in America, and my name happens to be on half of them, that's not an abstract issue. My mama loves me. When Said had to deal with the vicious attacks and threats, that's not an abstract issue. Miriam, Cornell, Naja, and Wadi loved him. We stand right with him because we loved him. That's what we're talking about. That's what Du Bois is talking about. That is part of the undeniable greatness. And by greatness, I don't mean Alexander the Great. I don't mean Napoleon. I don't mean Julius Caesar. I'm saying he or she is greatest among you will attempt to serve in the form of the gifts that they have, such that truth-telling and witness-bearing can be a force for real good, to use the language of John Coltrane, in the short time that we are here. And that's what is so magnificent about our brother, our comrade, our grand intellectual friend, Edward Zaid. Thank you all so very much.